Dr. Mina Joel-Pelly with Bluebird Dermatology. I am a board-certified pediatric dermatologist in the North Houston Spring area, and haven't done a Facebook Live interview in a while. And I have to say, one of my favorite parts of having any kind of social media platform is being able to share people's stories in the hopes that it helps someone else going through a similar journey. Because everyone has a story to tell, and I want to know yours. And that's how I've designed my practice, so that you have the time and the opportunity to share your journey or your child's journey with your skin with me. Teach me about your skin, your hardships, your triumphs, your hopes, your dreams, and hopefully together we can learn how we can make it healthy and strong. Because if you honor and celebrate and love the skin you're in and the way that you care for it, you will face the world with that same love and confidence. So this month is Vitiligo Awareness Month, and I have the great pleasure of having a dear friend of mine with me, Stephanie Bedford, who's going to share her journey with growing up with vitiligo, how she learned to love the skin she's in, and become an advocate for herself and others. Welcome, Stephanie. Thanks so much for being here. So happy to have you on, and I think this is going to sound like a recurring theme because so many of my dear friendships and deep bonds and connections were made there. But I first met Stephanie at Camp Dermatillo,
Yes.
probably about 10 years ago now. It seems like a long time.
More than 10, I think.
Yeah, a long time. And we've been friends ever since. I was part of the medical staff. She's one of our fabulous counselors. And I have to tell you, my very first impression, I don't think I've ever actually told you.
No, what is it? Let's hear it.
When I first met you, besides the fact that I was like, wow, she's stunningly gorgeous, was that you just exuded so much love and light and energy. And I just was like, well, we need to be BFFs.
Love it. Thank you.
So, tell me just a little bit about you and who you are, and we'll start there.
Right on. I'm Stephanie Bedford. I am married. I'm a mother of one. I reside in Tomball, Texas, and let's see, I've had vitiligo since I was about 8 years old, and early on it was something unknown, something unfamiliar with, other than the sense that we've had distant family members with it. And so then through the help of people like you and Camp Dermatillo, I've learned to love the skin I'm in, and that's something I've carried with onto my adulthood.
So for those who are watching who don't know what vitiligo is, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so vitiligo is pretty much loss of pigmentation of the skin. So my body thinks the melanocytes, right, are harmful to my body. It's an autoimmune disease response. And therefore, my body tries to protect me by pretty much destroying my pigmentation, my melanocytes, which means I've lost pigmentation in the skin. And so I think the patches are either pigment that I have not lost, or sometimes when I'm out in the sun and I'm not careful, I haven't worn enough sunscreen, or I've been out too long, my skin tries to repigment because it's trying to help me, but then my body will reject it and react with the loss of pigmentation.
That was an excellent explanation, because a lot of times with doctors we kind of get into the more scientific stuff of it, and people just want to know exactly what it is and how it's relatable. So thank you for that. Tell me your earliest memory of having vitiligo. Do you remember kind of when you first noticed it, or and what your perception of it was at 8 years old?
Yeah, so I don't think I first noticed it. I think the story goes, my mom noticed white patch on my eyelid and above my chest, and took me to the dermatologist. And I think, I can't remember now, I was in second grade, 8 years old, and I don't know if they told her, oh, she has vitiligo, or maybe it's, well, we'll come back to it. So I think we did a couple follow-up visits, and it took a whole year for it to, I don't know what the correct word is, to trigger, but then it started spreading quickly after a whole year. So about 9 years old was when we saw more dermatologists, and they explained, okay, she has vitiligo. This is what it is. And again, I was just seeing dermatologists that my mother would see, or any adult would see. There were not pediatric dermatologists available to us. So the information I got or we got, was received pretty much from adult language to an adult understander. There's no, this is, I'm an adult explaining to a child, this is what they're going to have. This is what they're going to endure. It was just like adult language.
Sure.
And, my mom did everything she could to seek treatment for me. Okay, what creams can we use? What should we do? And in the beginning, the responses were pretty much unhelpful, not helpful.
In what way? Like, do you remember?
I think they told her,
stuff?
she'll be fine. As she gets older, she can wear makeup. Or it was like, she can bleach her skin, get rid of all the brown spots. Let's bleach your skin white. And, my mom's like, she's an active, child.
Yeah.
Who's going to go out in the sun with bleached skin? And why was that an option now? Like, we have her whole life. So it's just kind of things like that. And then growing up, so yes, that was like elementary through middle school. I think my treatment, which is pretty much creams that I would try, a couple steroid creams. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. I think we just stopped. And when I entered high school, I'd gone to Texas Children's, and they informed us of a UVB light treatment therapy. So I think my sophomore year of high school, so you're like 15, 16, 3 days a week during the summer, I would drive to Galveston, UTMB, and I would make the 72-mile drive with a grandparent. And we'd get there, walk into the hospital. They'd let us into the room where the light box was. I'd stand in the box for no more than 42 seconds, something like that. And we'd get back in the car and drive home the 72-mile way. And I did that for a full summer.
How many times?
3 days a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And my grandma took me. My grandpa would take me.
And at the time, Texas Children's didn't have a light.
No.
Okay.
And I repigmented. So it was like the first time where we actually saw results.
Mm.
And being, a teenager, you're like, wonderful, this is great.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a problem anymore. Like, it's been solved. It's been cured.
Yeah.
And then I started maybe junior year, and it was complicated to see how are we going to do school and do the UTMB weekly visits. Thank goodness for insurance in this case. I got a light box at home.
Okay.
So we had it in my garage, and I would go in again, never more than like 45 seconds. And I got to do my treatment at home. And again, it worked for a couple months. And then for whatever reason, it just stopped. I was not repigmenting. My mom said, let's no longer use the box. There's no point if you're not repigmenting. And we donated the box to a friend of mine who had psoriasis. So that was great, because then it got to go to someone who needed it. And I think like junior year, I just decided no more treatments that aren't going to work, no more creams, no more therapy. Let's just let it run its course. And I've been that way ever since.
So that's from 8 years old to 16?
Yeah.
Around 16. So in that time of eight years, so because you mentioned at the beginning that you really didn't have any pediatric dermatologist explaining it to you in the way an 8-year-old might be able to understand kind of what's happening to you. Do you remember what things that you were feeling? Like, was there fear? Was there, what questions that you had at that point in time? Like, what was, as an 8-year-old who's all of a sudden getting these new things on her body, what did that feel like for you?
I think I was a bit confused, a little fearful. The dermatologist, I think one of them relayed my skin to if I were to lose pigmentation, I would look like a beautiful Grecian goddess with beautiful, imperfect white skin. Mm-hmm. So then I think when you're a child, you're like, what does that mean? Like, how so? And then I would hear comments like that. So that then you're left a little confused. And then I think you think like, why me? I had at the time, my older sister had no skin issues. My younger sister had no skin issues. It was disclosed to me early on when they first diagnosed me with vitiligo that my grandfather had it on his hands and feet on my father's side. And on my mother's side, she has an aunt with it on hands and feet, a cousin with it, in a couple places. But it was no one super close to me that I saw on a day-to-day basis to be familiar with it. So you're a bit confused. And then I think it was just fear and anxiety of like, how will I be portrayed in public? Um, it was unknown to me, you know, and how are others going to look at me and accept me and think, you know, what is that? What's going on there? Without being scared or without being like, I should not be near them or things like that. And a lot of comments growing up. I think I'm so thankful. I don't know how I got saved from bullying, but bullying wasn't a thing when I was in school. When I was in school, no one ever picked on me. No one ever said things to me. They probably had their own thoughts, kept them to themselves. I never got that end of anything.
Nobody asked you questions?
Nobody asked me questions. No one ever said, what is that? Or even if they did, it didn't get to you. It wasn't painful to hear, or it wasn't something that scarred me. So even if they asked, I probably said, oh, it's just a skin condition. But thankful to not have dealt with any of that. The comments I would get would be mainly out in public. If we're out doing something with my family, people would stare, people would look, people would comment. Strangers, even young ones, would be like, are you burned? What is that? Can I touch you? Or like, is it different? Does it feel different? Things like that. But thank goodness I never had a rough time in school. And whatever I felt in school was just my own insecurity that I had to learn to let go and accept, which has been a lifelong process. And I think a lot of that helping me in school was the great support system that I had within my family. I have an incredible mother. And, oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional. She never made me feel like I was any different than either one of my sisters.
Did you feel different?
No. I knew I had something where it's like, if we're going to go outside, put a hat on. Put your sunblock on. Layer up, Steph. Cover. Put the shirt on that's going to protect your back and your arms. And my sisters never treated me any different either. And I think I was sandwiched in between them. Yeah. So in school, I always felt like they were my protectors.
So started getting emotional. No, I'm feeling that because I know her family, and her emotion comes from and correct me if I'm wrong, but it comes from a sense of deep gratitude for the love that she gets from her family. Her family is incredible. She has the most amazing, just sisters and brother and mom and just extended family. We'll talk a little about her amazing husband too, but that's what I kind of wanted to know about, is that the fact that that's the first thing that I noticed about her too, that she just exudes so much love and light and energy, and that had to come from some place, because having a skin condition, this is something that I tell a lot of my patients and the kids that I know with skin condition, is that in some ways, at some point, when you are able to understand and you know why you might be going through these struggles, you also realize that having a skin condition can be like a superpower. And that's because you have more understanding and empathy for others going through something similar. You have more compassion and understanding and empathy for other people who are suffering and it might not just be from what other people say about you, but from an internal struggle. And when you mentioned that you heard like what strangers, you know, sometimes it can hurt if it comes from people around you, but sometimes it can hurt from people who don't even know anything about you and who are portraying something about you or judging you in a certain way. And I know for me, if I get that, it's just, you don't know anything about me and you've already judged me in a certain way. So when other people would say things to you, how did that make you feel? And how did you respond to it?
I think similar to what you just said, like, you don't know anything about me. You have no idea what this is, and you're going to judge me just based off my appearance. But that's when my sisters would chime in and say, what are you looking at? You know? Or what's your problem? Like, and I never had to say anything. And it was just when I think ever got a handful of curiosity come out and say, do you mind if I ask you, why is your skin like that? Only a handful, I think, that I can think of. And I think now that's why it's so important to spread awareness of, not only what is vitiligo, all the other skin conditions. Hey, let's not stare and point and judge. Let's ask politely. Do you mind if I ask you, what's your story? Why does your skin look like that? Or what do you call that? I think, I don't know, maybe from my time growing up, you never ask questions. Like, don't stare, that's rude. Don't look. And now I think it's made a turning point where it's say, like, let's ask nicely. Let's ask politely. If they'd like to share with us, they can. But we don't have to hush anybody. We don't have to say, look away, turn around. Let's ask very politely and nicely and be kind about it. And I think that's a good turning point to open the discussion and, spread awareness on what everyone's carrying.
I think I think you make a good point that sometimes when you kind of hush things, it actually stigmatizes it even more, and it makes you feel like there's something wrong with you, like that you can't be able to be free and about what it is that makes you unique and special and all of those things. And I think I would like to say that at least kids, anyway, most people when they ask questions because they're just curious,
right?
That they want to know, and what helps a lot of kids when I talk to a lot of kids about what do you do when you have these questions. It might be a good idea to actually just anticipate that someone's going to ask you those questions and be prepared for it, so that it doesn't feel like something that's so anxiety provoking, that you're already ready for it, you know what you want to say, and you know what message you want to convey about yourself.
Right. Yeah.
So you get to kind of the high school age, and of course high school, you're kind of getting interested in boys and relationships. So did you, in that stage where you're trying to figure out who you were, did you ever feel like having vitiligo might affect your relationships?
Yes. So I was very timid growing up, and I think I'm an introvert, and I don't know if me having vitiligo has made things worse being an introvert for me, just because I was like, I never wanted to stand out, right? Because I didn't want someone to pick me out and say, oh, well, what is that? I was not comfortable to discuss it. I refused to take PE in high school as my PE credit because I did not want to change in front of anybody. So I was like, Mom, I'm taking off campus. And she was like, do what you need to do to get it done, but you have to take whatever credit you need to get done. So I did all my research, signed up, and I went to a gym off campus because I was like, I'm not changing in front of anybody. So I think me struggling to accept this is what I have might have caused more anxiety than what I would have, it was all in my head probably, than what I felt or could have experienced. And it wasn't until post-college where I became more comfortable. Even on campus in college, I would say okay, we're going to wear this dress. We're going to wear these shorts, this tank top. I got more comfortable with dressing, showing, and same with high school. I was in a spit where I was like, I'm just going to wear what I want. But I never wanted, I always thought someone's looking at me, they're looking at my skin. And it could have just been, they are looking at the person behind me, sure. Anything. But I always was weary if I made eye contact with someone. It was like, what are they looking at? Are they looking at my skin? Are they trying to figure out what it is? Do they have questions about it? So that was probably just all in my head. And even now sometimes, I'll get a glimpse of someone staring at me and I'm like, what is showing? Do they see the patch on my arm or what is it?
Yeah.
And I think that's just something just for my own insecurity that developed. And now I'm still trying to be like, no, you're okay, breathe. They might just like the outfit I have on or something. My hair looks good today.
What do you think was kind of, and it sounds like that's still an ongoing struggle, but less so. But what do you think might have been sort of the turning point for you to just where you felt more just comfortable, just showing people who you are here and not so focused on what's on the surface?
I think just years of camp.
Yeah.
And being exposed. I was a counselor, but yet I took so much after every year. I gained just as much as appreciation for camp as our campers did. And I think just being around people, as a counselor, one of our responsibilities was to let kids let your hair down. No one's here to judge you. You can be who you want to be. You're going to be fully accepted. And I was telling myself that message as well as a counselor. I'm fine here. I'm going to let my hair down and I'm going to encourage these kids and also encourage myself as best as I can. And I've learned so much more from all my campers that I'm sure I helped teach them a little bit. So I think just through camp and being exposed to um, people who share something that I share was great for my growth. And then also just being plugged in with people like you and Dr. Bree, that's helped tremendously. And I've learned to just accept myself and, skin condition and all.
Awesome. And I just, and that's the thing. Like we're both camp lifers, and we will both say that for me anyway, I feel like it's one of the most powerful medicines that I can prescribe any patient. But I've gotten so much out of it too. I learned so much from just living with these campers for a week and just sort of seeing what their daily struggles are, not just with their skincare and all the things that they have to do to take care of it all every day, but just how they live with it. How they handle when people ask them questions about it, how they handle like how they perceive themselves, and how that changes over time, because we see kids that start camp when they're 8 or 9 years old, and they've been coming to camp over the years, and how much they've grown and changed and started to become an advocate for, like I said, not only for themselves but for others in that way too. And it's a very heartwarming thing to know that you might have been just a small piece of that. Yes. So I said that we were going to kind of talk about your amazing husband, because first of all, single ladies out there, get you a husband, a man that looks at you and adores you and cherishes you the way her husband does. I mean, you don't have to go through the whole story of it, like how y'all met and stuff, but in your relationship, was that ever something that you were self-conscious about in your skin, or was it something that he just kind of took off the table from the very beginning?
No, it was something I was self-conscious always about. We started hanging out, we started dating, and he knows the story. It wasn't until months in, he and I are at dinner. He never alluded to the fact that I had a skin condition. He always said how beautiful I was, how much he adored me, things like that. So that was really sweet to hear. He never brought up my skin condition. We were eating dinner in April. We had our first date in September. So months pass, we go to dinner in April. And we're at dinner, and I brought it up, and I started talking about it. And he just fully accepted it. And he knows the story, and he's going to laugh that I'm crying now because he knows it. But he just talked to me and in no way shied away from the conversation or showed that he was uncomfortable. But we didn't spend the whole dinner talking about it. We spent a couple minutes talking about something. He asked a question, and then we enjoyed the rest of the dinner. I went home, and I cried to my mom saying, like, I talked to him about it, and he just fully accepted me. And like he just did all the right things where it's like I felt great about confiding in this person that I'm very interested in with something so personal and important to me, and he just took it as I think anyone would hope to take any kind of important aspect of your life you're sharing with, and he did that.
But I mean, just to have, and for those of you who are out there who, I think growing up with, even if it's a skin condition or a medical condition, having that support system around you is just so important, because I think, just like we talked about, when you go to camp and you meet other people who are going through a similar journey, the single most empowering thing about camp or any other support system or group is just the feeling like you're not alone.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, I mean, it could be someone who just loves you unconditionally, or other people who you don't know but who have been through a similar struggle. It's just that there's so much strength in just knowing that you're not alone, and that's why we, both of us are so involved in being able to provide that for other people as well. Just briefly, because I don't want to forget about it. You mentioned that there were a lot of different treatment options that you went through, as creams and then light therapy, and then you got to a point where you decided that it wasn't doing enough and that you made the decision to not do it anymore. So there's a very large spectrum of how people with vitiligo respond to treatment. Mm-hmm. Some do really well. Some have, a small patch and it gets better either with or without treatment and it never happens again. Other people, it could be more extensive, and some people do really well with treatment. It may have to have, regular treatments going forward. But since most of this was kind of in your periods of childhood and growing up, how much involvement did you have in your care and what treatment options, and did it feel like a chore to you? Did you want to do it? And were you involved in the decision to just stop?
Yes. So I was involved in anything that they said, oh, let's try these creams. My mom was always an advocate for me. What's in it? What's it going to do? What are the side effects? Good and bad. What are the long-term effects? So she was great. She always did her research. I mean, I'm a child, and she was on top of her stuff. She's always taught us, like, the most important advocate is yourself. So she was my advocate until I could understand the language and things, and, like, thank God for Google or something, so I can say, like, well, what is this going to do to me? But that didn't happen to, like, post high school, anything. But yes, so nothing was ever forced on me. It was only highly recommended. But some things were highly recommended, like, let's just bleach your skin if you want to. And it's like, I'm not going to do that. I love being outside. We go to the lake, we go to the beach. I'm not going to, I sit now covered under an umbrella with a long sleeve and a towel on. But, like, to think that I'm going to hinder my skin in a way where it's like, checking the mail or something, if I'm not covered, then I'm going to increase my risk of such as severe sunburn, things like that. Like, let's not do that. Yeah. And then as far as treatment, me deciding just to end, that was my full-on decision. My mom wasn't too thrilled with the continued use of the light therapy. She just was worried about prolonged effects. Mm-hmm. And so when we decided to stop that, she's always supported every decision, I've had. And so it was just like, let's just let time do its thing.
When did it feel like a relief, or did it feel like like a weight was lifted off, or the opposite? Did it feel like hopeless?
It was more so of a relief and maybe hopeful for just, like, I became more comfortable in my skin. So it's like, I don't need to do anything. I don't need to put creams on that we're going to try and see if they work. What if they don't? Why am I putting this on my body if nothing's going to happen? So I think I was just hopeful and more confident in myself that, like, God's with me. He's going to take care of me, and I have nothing to fear because it's in his hands. And yeah.
Just for those of you who don't know, so any area of your skin where you have vitiligo, you don't have that protective pigment that protects you from the sun. For example, someone with, darker skin like I do, I don't burn as easily. That doesn't mean I don't have sun damage. I still have to wear sunscreen. But in areas where you have much lighter skin, you're more prone to sunburns. And so one of the options that some people do, and actually was done, I guess, more commonly in the past, although people still do it sometimes, and we have extensive vitiligo, is what you're talking about, there's a bleaching agent that you can have that can completely take away all the color in your skin. Downside to that is that you're much more susceptible to sunburns because you don't have any protective pigment. And so it's not always an easy option, and I think, at least for me, my goal is to make sure that whatever option that you or anyone chooses is something that you're comfortable with, and that you got to make that decision and knew all the pros and cons and all of that as well. So, so Stephanie has a beautiful, almost 2-year-old, almost 2-year-old daughter, and my gosh, I mean, just a light and just buzzing everywhere. Yes. But so much energy. Did you ever worry about passing on vitiligo to her?
Yes. So before Lewis and I, we decided, you're my person, So then went through the whole engagement process, marriage, and we've always talked early on about kids, and that's always something that's come up. And again, like, he's like, I love you. Why, if that were to happen to our children, what's the big deal? So that's awfully, find you a partner who, accepts you fully and will accept offspring as with all your everythings. And yeah, so I've always thought in my head, and then I've just thought like, there's so much more research, there's so much more exposure, there's so much more awareness and gatherings and events for skin conditions now. My child is going to be just fine.
Have you ever thought about when she gets older and she starts to ask questions, how you would, like, what you want to tell her about vitiligo and how you want to answer?
Yeah, well, even now, she's very bright, so she will point to my arms and she'll say, "Mama, Mama," and she points to like my different spots. I mean, to me, it's she's pointing to my patches.
Yeah.
I don't know what she could be just touching my arm, but I'll say like Mama's skin, Mama's pretty skin, and then we touch her skin. And then when we put sunblock on, Mama has to put sunblock on to protect her pretty skin, and Penelope needs to put sunblock on to protect her pretty skin.
Yeah.
But I have nieces, and they've all been curious, and they've all said, "But why is it like that? Or what is this?" And I explained that I have angel kisses. Mm-hmm. And then just not too long ago, my niece Charlotte explained that she wanted angel kisses too. Why couldn't she have any? So I explained her freckles were her angel kisses. She has cute freckles on her face. So.
Oh, I love that. I love it. What else to ask you? You mentioned, so at the very beginning, that you didn't have access to pediatric dermatologists, and it was more, it was probably explained in a language that you didn't understand. What are some things that you wish could have been different? I mean, it sounds like for the most part you've had an incredibly healthy support system to get you through it, and even then you've had your own struggles. But was there anything that you wish could have gone differently in the way that you were, not necessarily by your family, but just supported in the community, or resources that you wish you might have had, or in the the medical field, things that it would have helped for any doctors or nurses or other healthcare practitioners that are watching, that could have helped you as a child going through something like this?
I think just in the medical field, using proper language for a child to understand everything, not to create any fear that they may have. You're already in a doctor's office. You don't know really what's going on. You're trying to learn. You have a parent who's very worried of something that you may be going through because they wish they could carry that rather than you. And you just using the proper language and like speaking on the terms of a child and explaining exactly what you may be going through, and also not using like metaphors like, oh, she's gonna have Grecian white goddess skin, but she's gonna be fine. Or she can always use makeup. Like, no one wants to hear, I'm sure a parent doesn't want to hear that either about their child when they're like 8, 9, 10 years old. And then also I think just I've had a couple appointments, different doctor's appointments, where I've had to disrobe and take photos just so they can see progress, or for studies. Mm-hmm. And I think then you're kind of like uncomfortable. What's going on? Why are people in this room staring at me taking photos? I know it's medical reasons, but I think if that would have been handled better, and maybe, I don't know, softer language, less medically, then again, you would feel more positive about the experience. I'm going to do something that's going to help bring awareness. I'm going to help do something that these photos are going to help people study or learn more about vitiligo, rather than kind of like they're all staring at me. What why was I singled out for these photos? Like, I don't know the reason. Like, they were like, let's just do it. And I'm sure my mom's like, okay, if it's going to help someone or something, let's do it. But then like situations like that, I wish were kind of handled better.
To your point, a friend of ours who we know, who we've kind of been involved with for many years now, Rick Guidati, has a nonprofit called Positive Exposure, and that's actually what he set out to do. It was that he's a photographer. He's a fashion photographer for many years, but he sort of became disillusioned with how beauty was defined, and he set out to show beauty in everyone and the humanity. And what he realized was that in the medical textbooks that we have, when we learn about any kind of medical condition, especially skin conditions or genetic skin conditions, or any medical condition, it's just, you have black and white pictures of somebody with their body on display, black bars over their eyes to protect their anonymity, but it doesn't show any humanity behind the person that you're seeing. And so he travels the world, not so much this last year, but he travels the world with exhibits of his photography showing like, okay, yes, this person might have vitiligo, this person might have eczema, this person might have Down syndrome or whatever genetic skin condition or anything that's on display that you might see on the surface. But it also shows their joy. It shows he tries to show what makes them them. It's not just about what's on the surface of the skin. And so his their motto is change how you see how you change. And so now 2 years ago that we got to go to, he has a
Yes.
freestanding gallery now in New York City, and we got to go to the opening there, and it was a treat. So shout out to Rick.
Hi, Rick.
But also just, in terms of other resources there, we have also a good friend, Diane Wilkes-Tribbett, who has a nonprofit that she runs called the Houston Vitiligo Awareness Movement. And again, especially, and that they have movements like that all over the U.S. and all over the world. But we're so fortunate to have her and her wonderful spirit and energy bringing awareness to vitiligo, and actually I don't know if they're doing anything for World Vitiligo Day, but it's coming up in a couple days. They have a conference every year, and we had one here. I guess
2 years ago.
I feel like the last year didn't happen. But it was 2 years ago, so we got to be involved with that, which is a wonderful organization. By the way, I'm going to put links to all of these organizations that we're talking about so you can check them out and see all the amazing stuff that they do as well. But so last couple questions. What do you hate about vitiligo?
I don't hate anything.
Why do you say that?
Because my mom says hate's too much of a strong word. We should not hate.
Okay. What do you love about vitiligo?
I love about vitiligo is it adds a unique feature to me. No one's skin has skin like I do. Even as someone else with vitiligo, our patterns are completely different. Mine are my own. I love it. Like, I love that growing up, after I was comfortable in my skin, I would tell my mom, hey, look at this patch. It looks like, this. And we would laugh about it, right? Because she was, I'm sure, amused that I was comfortable enough to point something out like spilt milk. I love that my back, I pretty much depigmented on my front, but my back, I have patches and it looks like angel wings. I love that I have a gray patch on the back of my head, and when I wear my hair in a ponytail, people ask if I've dyed my hair.
I have a gray patch, a pandemic casualty on the front of my head.
But I don't hate it. I've learned to love it. Vitiligo does not define who Stephanie Bedford is, but it helps make Stephanie Bedford who she is, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So it's funny that you say it in that way, because I often tell people that there never has been, is, or will be the uniquely beautiful person in front of me. And you are every shade of beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing your story.